All right. So, can you enter into a state of no thought? Or can you experience thoughtlessness? I'm going to suggest no, it's not possible. And I'll explain why. And I'll do that by giving my own experience, a description of my own experience, and I'm not making any philosophical claims about a way it is. So with this one, I encourage you to look into your experience with me as we go through this, and not hold on to any conceptual conclusions or definitions. So this might be a load off, this might be a relief, because I did this a lot of the time. I was resisting thought, or looking to achieve or attain the absence of thought, which I'm going to suggest is not possible or necessary, because you'll notice that I don't point in this way, and I don't suggest that we should get rid of thoughts, or I don't suggest that there has to be a thoughtlessness to wake up, because it's not my experience, it's not the case. So I don't place a huge emphasis on maintaining a thoughtless state, because like I'm going to describe here, you're just fighting yourself with it. So I'm going to provide a different, possibly you might have heard this before, a different way to approach this. And this way means that the pressure is off of having to control your thoughts or control your state of mind. So if you imagine thinking, or the thought experience, as another sense. So you've got the sight, the seeing, which you can't switch off, it's always on. You've got the sound, the hearing. The hearing you can't turn off, it's always on. You've got the sensation, which is always here. And then we've got the thought stuff, the thinking, which is consciousness, or always conscious, always self-aware, and it's never off. It's on all the time, and the sum of these make up our whole experience. So you get the substance of the seeing is the sight. You get the substance of the hearing being the sound, and you've got the substance of the thinking being the thought. I use this word substance a lot because in the thought, the thinking, that has a self-aware substance. There's the substance of it, which allows us to experience its movements. And the substance is important because the movements within thought contain or suggest objective things, suggest the things that they refer to in mind, the content of thought. Of course, I talk about this a lot. When we're looking at this into the thought experience, there are certain ideas, concepts which are contained within the thought, the thought is talking about. And these ideas which give rise to an experience, an illusory experience. But this idea, or these ideas, are that there are multiple thoughts that are distinct, that come and go, come into experience from nowhere and leave experience to nowhere, to nothing. So I'm going to suggest that that's not at the ultimate level, at the direct level, what's happening. Those are thoughts again. So with awakening, we get out of the content of thought into the substance of thought. The thoughts do calm down and subside, but the substance of the thought is ever present as self-awareness or consciousness. It's the thinking that moves and changes as this substance takes the form of different ideas and images and language and concepts, thought forms. So to illustrate this, you can imagine in this self-awareness, this consciousness, this knowingness, that it is the ever-present substance of the thinking experience. Imagine from a bird's eye view, you're looking down at an ocean of water. The water representing the substance of the thought. The movements in the waves representing different thought forms. So rather than it being a linear thing that's going along like that, one thought after another, we've just got movement, different, the water moving into different shapes and forms, those representing the shape of the thought, the what is suggested in the thought. So imagine this is like a magical water that instead of having waves, it can take the shape of like images and words and ideas and stuff like that. So the water forms into these waves, these shapes, but the water is always there. When it subsides, when the water is completely still, it's still water. The water isn't absent. So the water is the substance, and the movements of the waves are thinking as an activity. So that's a bit of a load off, because it means we don't need to try and get rid of thought and have a thoughtless state, because its substance is ever present. We're never having the experience of no thought. We can see through the thought. So the waves, the thought forms on the surface of the ocean, we can't really see down to the coral reef, because the water's not clear. But with inquiry, we use a question. The question points back down into the ocean rather than out to the world. And the question has the effect of calming the mind. So the waves level, it's a totally clear blue surface, and then through that you can see through the substance of thought to yourself, to the source of mind, the source of thought, the source of this self-aware knowingness, this consciousness. So from there we can see that, so for example, to experience a thoughtless state, the recognition and noticing that there is no thought there is going to be another thought. So the noticing of the absence of thought is another thought. So that's why you can't have the experience of thoughtlessness from the subject's point of view, because the subject has a movement in thought. Part of the function in this movement of thought, the shapes that it forms to look like me, and we identify with the shapes and forms on the surface. But its substance is self-aware, and that's self-confirming, but not in a personal way. You don't have to notice that you're not thinking. Let's say the shapes and forms on the surface are the activity of thinking, what we take to be certain specific individual thoughts. And we can only do that from a point of view of a wave in the ocean. So the wave appears and the wave looks at another wave and relates to that thought, but it can't look back down into its source, into its substance. It is limited to the surface, it's limited to the wave. It's not what or who you really are. So there aren't thoughts that come and go across a timeline, because that assumes time. That assumes the one here that's me who's tracking that, following that, and noticing that across time. That's a belief in the existence of distinct thoughts that come one after the other, or the belief in the difference in there being a thought or there being no thought. From the point of view of what you are, from the point of view of the ocean, that doesn't matter. Although, like, when there is a mad storm on the surface and it's all bubbling and frothing, you know, the water's not clear, you can't see down into your true nature. The identified movements in the waves are such that it's only what you are only is aware of those movements and the violence of them. It's not able to relax down into the self-knowing clarity of I am. So the inquiry question points back to the ocean as a whole, not to the waves, not to the movements of thought on the surface. It's not a surface thing we're looking at here, it's looking back in at yourself to the deepest level. So what is it like after awakening? The ocean knows itself, it knows its substance. So that any movements can happen on the waves, and there's a deep knowing, this deep self-recognition that that's not what I am. For a while the storm continues and the ocean and the waves move, and there might be a forgetting in the moment now and again, but then when it settles, there's this deep knowing that I am the ocean, I'm infinite, my depth is enormous. So then the kraken comes out. No, I'm looking. Stupid. And the waves do still a great deal, because when the waves are moving on the surface of the ocean, in order to maintain the self that's suggested there, it has to keep moving to form a solid self. It has to keep. The waves have to still have some momentum to them. Otherwise the illusion isn't maintained. But after awakening, it can settle down, because we're not trying to continue the reinforce this illusion, trying to keep the waves alive, trying to keep the movement such that the waves don't diminish. So this is where meditation comes in, to still the water. But you hear some people say that, meditation isn't necessarily required, because it can be that there's still one wave, a single wave in the stillness, and that's me, the subject, the felt sense of the individual, the separate self. So the thought doesn't come from nowhere and disappear into nowhere. There's no substratum, there's no background. We never have the experience of the thought disappearing into nowhere. When the thought's here, it's here, and that's it. And it's always one thought. Just like the ocean, one thought, immediately in the moment. So I also just wanted to say that see when the seasons change, there's definitely, your body can feel it. So the changing of the seasons, our bodies are deeply dependently originated with everything else, deeply interdependent on the movements of the seasons as they change. I notice in the change between seasons, there's a visceral, a powerful, energetic potential there that you can feel, that's almost palpable. I find that's a good catalyst for clarity, to feel that. With that, you feel your connection to the world as an organism. If anyone knows what I mean by this, you can let me know. Feel that deep connection to the earth. I'm sounding a bit hippie now, aren't I? A deep connection to the earth. Hug the tree as hard as you can and don't let it go. I mean, probably a good practice. So relax down into the substance of thought. Don't resist thoughts by thinking. There's only ever one thought, and you can use that. You can use the stillness to. You can use the stillness to be able to see down deeper into what you are. Sink back further into the ocean, such that it doesn't matter if the waves are all over the place. You know deeply the source of mind is you. You are the ocean. Anyway, that'll do for now, and I'll talk to you next time.